So, Julie, what exactly happened here?
So overnight, Twitter apparently purged a bunch of accounts, and it's unclear whether those accounts will be added back. What happened is there'd been a slew of users that had violated terms of service on the account, and then they had gotten sent an email to verify that, no, they are not a bot, they are an actual human being, and just verify their phone number. So as soon as they would do that, they would be added back on, but while they are in that period in between, they aren't counted as followers for anyone else. So that's the period. Twitter probably doesn't even know exactly how many of these accounts that were purged overnight are actually bots, but this is a way to sort of figure that out. And obviously, this has been a really big issue for Twitter over the second half of 2017 and to start in 2018. And for a while, a lot of people said that Twitter wasn't taking it seriously enough, that it's constantly been a platform where there's been harassment. And then when the Russia scandal broke, where people were actually using the platform to sway things like the U.S. presidential election, that drew even more attention to the platform. And it sounds like maybe they went a little bit too fast at this point, but Sarah probably has even more since she's covered Twitter for so long.
I wonder, they obviously targeted these accounts for a reason, and Twitter says, Sarah, doesn't have anything to do with political bias. Their response saying, Twitter's tools are apolitical, and we enforce our rules without political bias. As part of our ongoing work in safety, we identify suspicious account behaviors that indicate automated activity or violations of our policies around having multiple accounts or abuse. What's your take on how dramatic this is in the history of enforcement that Twitter has taken?
Well, we've seen a lot of broad purges by Twitter in the past, especially of accounts related to ISIS and related to the far right that were linked to the Charleston issue. In this case, I think it's going to be very difficult for Twitter to know for sure who exactly is a bot and who is a real person account that just tends to retweet a lot of bots and be connected to a lot of bots. Because these Russian bots, as we read in the Mueller indictment on Friday, have been extremely adept at entrenching themselves in the real world, building connections with real Americans, presenting themselves as real people. And so when you go through and try to purge them, it's difficult to do it in a way that is clean using artificial intelligence. You're going to get some errors.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the percentage of users on Twitter that are bots and compare that to Facebook. What do we know about just how many users on Twitter are bots and how powerful they are, as opposed to Facebook, which has a much bigger user base but a much smaller percentage of fake accounts?
On Facebook, it's a lot harder to make a fake account. On the black market, we see that accounts that have been active for longer go for more. This is because people on Facebook have worked to establish their identity over years. If you just create any account on Facebook, it might not go through. Whereas on Twitter, you can make any kind of account as long as you have an email address. It doesn't have to be a real name. It can be an account for your dog. It can be a joke account for something you want to make fun of. It doesn't have to be a person. Whereas on Facebook, you do. So that's a huge differentiator. On Twitter, we see the company says around 5% of accounts are fake. Researchers estimate the number is much higher. Facebook responded to congressional investigators and said that about 2 to 3% of its accounts could be considered in the sort of undesirable category. This category of fake account that's not just a person making an account for their pet, but actually somebody who's trying to break the system and be somebody they're not.